Thank you all for joining us for the workshop. Joining us today is Christy Correa-Davis, Graduate Assistant and Fellowship Program Coordinator, Graduate College, and Ashley Gray, Director of Graduate Financial Services, Graduate College. They are going to discuss and guide you through the basics of funding, applying for, and securing scholarship and fellowship. I will now hand it over to them to get us started.
Great, thank you. Good morning. So while we wait to get the slides uploaded, my name is Christy Correa-Davis. As stated before, I'm a GA and Fellowship Program Coordinator here at the Grad College, and I'll be touching on just scholarships and fellowships specifically. I am that person that if a question arises in the middle of the presentation, just go ahead and put it in the chat. If it's pertaining to something specifically that I'm going over, I can address it then. But if it's just a more general question, we do have a slide at the end for anything like that. So we have space for both. So I just want to let you guys know that. Alrighty, so I know this session is going to be recorded, but I also wanted to include my own information on there for you all. That is my direct phone as well, if you ever wanted to talk to me about just graduate assistantships in general, with our scholarship and fellowship season coming up as well. I did want to include that information, just if anybody needed clarity after the presentation. I'm happy to meet one-on-one, whether that's through email or a phone call. So I included that for you guys there. And then just for some of our session objectives today, obviously we're going to familiarize ourselves with specifically graduate college scholarships and fellowships, which ones you will be eligible to apply for, and just making sure that you are aware of just the general requirements when applying, because I know we get certain questions about criteria and rubrics, so I just wanted to put everything out there for you all so you are aware of what is needed before the portal even opens. Okay, so knowing the difference. So scholarships and fellowships are typically, for scholarships specifically, they are awarded based on merit, obviously qualifying requirements, and typically is less or equal to $5,000 that we award and does not need to be repaid. Fellowships are more targeted for doctoral students, right? So it's more competitive. So you will see when you are applying for scholarships and fellowships, if you are a doctoral student, the process is a little different. With a scholarship, you are submitting your required documents and a committee is reviewing them, but you're just being selected based on the committee's recommendation and their own criteria. For fellowships, you are being selected to interview with a committee, presenting your research to them, and then the committee decides if based on your research, they will be funding essentially your last year of your program, so you can focus solely on attending conferences, furthering your research, where you don't necessarily have to worry about a paycheck, because the fellowship will cover your cost of attendance and a living stipend. And so that is the two differences between that. So if you do notice right now, we are working through an update with our Grad Rebel Gateway. We are making it specifically where students will only be able to apply for scholarships or fellowships that they qualify for. So in the past, we've had it where our drop down has shown everything, right? But we'll have like a master's student applying for a fellowship when that's only for doctoral students, right? So just to kind of avoid like the repetitiveness and unnecessary applications that might not correlate to your specific requirements. When the portal opens on October 1st, you should be able to see just all the things that you qualify for. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that is a big improvement that we're making on our website. And so if you have any questions about that, let me know. And then I do want to emphasize this point that we have on the end where scholarships and fellowships are open to students regardless of immigration status. While we do require a FAFSA form to be on file, we do also have the alternate need form for international students. So as long as either one of those are submitted, you can qualify for either one. So I just wanted to put that out there. So when you have questions about what specific scholarships and fellowships we have, I wanted to include just pictures from our website. So that when you look up UNLV graduate college fellowships and scholarships, this is the window that you're going to see. So each scholarship and fellowship that we have available, when you click on it, you'll have a drop down and it'll give you a little bit of a background on if it was a donor base, like the history of it, as well as requirements, whether that's GPA, enrollment in a specific degree program. So I know we have one like specifically for sociology students. So if you're not a sociology student, you won't qualify for it. So I just encourage everybody to do your research now since we're still in September to see if there would be any that you're interested in or think that you would qualify for, as well as at the top of the the top of the page, you'll see a general information and guidelines. So here's where we have a rubric where you can go in and see how the committee rates your application based on your material submitted. I know we get questions all the time asking, well, how do I know what I'm being like rated on, or what do I need to emphasize specifically in my application? So we included the rubric that the committee looks at when specifically rating your application when it's with them for review. And then we also included required application materials. So throughout this presentation, I will show you what that is, but it's general items such as your CV or resume, a letter of recommendation, and just things like that. And then I'll talk a little bit about FAFSA. So it's just important to have everything on here. A lot of the scholarships require the same things, but like I said, there are those that have like a niche area of whether you played on, you're an athlete here at UNLV. We do have our UNLV Grad Access Childcare Scholarship that's open for anyone. And so it just depends on the specific one. So I would definitely encourage you all to look and do your research ahead of time. And so also here, I wanted to include a screenshot with our fellowships as well. So we have our summer doctoral fellowship, our presidents, Barrick, our Robert E. Lang, and our board of trustees. So these are our most competitive fellowships that we have here at the grad college, and we only select a handful of students every year. So I highly encourage you, even specifically for the summer doctoral, that is a $7,000 award that we give during the summer. So if you are a doctoral student, that one is really competitive as well, but I always encourage students to apply because it's a great benefit, especially if you're trying to prioritize your research during the summer and you want some extra funding so you don't have to worry about maybe getting a graduate assistantship to have to pay for your summer classes or even just a stipend. So it's always important to just do your research, but I wanted to include that on there so you know what exactly to look for when you look up our website. And I also included a link to it as well at the bottom. Okay, so it's always important to get your FAFSA or alternate need form on file. And the reason why I say this is because we have a lot of resources on campus that base you getting awarded things on when you submitted your FAFSA, right? So if the priority window opens like 2 or 3 months before and you're one of those people that gets it in, you can qualify for a lot of scholarships available or grants through UNLV. Specifically for us with our access grant, we look for a couple of things. So we look for your SAI, which is like your overall family contribution. And then we also look at when you submitted your FAFSA and your GPA, and we basically take that information and send it to financial aid, and then we ask them specifically, okay, we have this pot of allotted money for these requirements, please award this out until there's no money left, and base it on priority of when people submitted their things, if they're enrolled in classes as well. Sometimes for awards, if you're not enrolled yet in your program, that could also base off your eligibility for scholarships, because technically we can't award something to a student that isn't active in the system. And the way we see if you're active in the system is if you're enrolled in classes for that semester that we're awarding for. So that is something important to note. Just make sure you're doing all these things ahead of time, because potential funding, even though it's never guaranteed, you have a higher chance of qualifying for it, getting things in early. And so just making sure you get that done and having that option, whether you're a domestic student or international, is really important. And so we just recommend that you fill it out regardless, even if you're not taking out loans. It's just important to have on file because not even just within the grad college, but other departments require it as well for funding opportunities. So like I said before, the scholarship that I included earlier, or the scholarship screenshots that I included earlier, is what you will be looking at. But just to give you an idea of how the amounts work. Scholarships range from $490 to $2,500, specifically here within the grad college. And then fellowships range from $7,000 to $30,000. So as I was stating earlier, we do have the summer doctoral, that's the one that's $7,000. And then board of trustees, Robert E. Lang, and presidents, and I believe Barrick are the ones that range between like 20,000 to like 30,000. And so most of our awards are specifically for 2 semesters, unless it's specified in your award letter specifically. So we'll get questions like, oh, I thought I was gonna get this money all in one lump sum, and it is actually because it's separated into 2. Because the purpose of it is specifically for fellowships is that you're focusing on your last year of your program, so that amount is meant to be split in 2. Another question that we seem to get sometimes when students have GA-ships compared to a fellowship is how it works. And I want to address this because we do get some questions on the difference. So when you have a GA-ship, you get awarded your tuition waiver and you get a monthly stipend, right? So it's typically every first of the month. When you get a fellowship, depending on which one you get, if you get tuition coverage or not, your fellowship award will either cover your amount of your tuition, and then the remaining amount is for you to kind of allocate for your bills and things, but you do get that as a lump sum at the beginning of each semester. So say, for example, you got $30,000, that will be split in half. So you'll get 1/2 for the fall at the beginning. And if tuition coverage is included, it won't be taken from that lump sum. But if it's not, it will be subtracted from that sum of money. And then whatever's remaining is up to your responsibility to allocate for you to have enough for your bills and everything like that. And so that is important to note when you're doing your research specifically on fellowships, because I have had students ask me questions about that, where they're like, oh, I thought this was gonna be a monthly thing, not that I had to allocate it all at once. So I do wanna emphasize, and then obviously with scholarships and fellowships, we do just give you that lump sum, unless it's 2 semesters, which I think majority of them are, unless you are applying for childcare scholarship, where it's just we're returning money that you paid for childcare. It is typically split in 2. So I just wanted to emphasize that as well, just to know the difference, because sometimes we have students that are awarded fellowships that actually prefer their GA as a better opportunity, so they decide to go with that, or they decide to decline their GA and pursue the fellowship opportunity. So it just kind of depends how you want to allocate your money, what system seems to work better for you. So I just recommend doing your research. Also, you can meet with me as well, and I can explain the difference as well. So just wanted to touch on that too. So specifically for all the scholarships, I wanted to include all the amounts on here. Like I said, if you want to know if you qualify for it, just look on our website as well, just to see what is needed for that. But like I said, with our new update coming October 1st, it will list what scholarships and fellowships you qualify for. So I would just touch on that and just making sure. So see, for example, Tina Kunzer is specifically for women athletes. And then we do have an American Indian and Native American student scholarship. So just looking, and then physics and astronomy. So, different areas that you need to do research on to make sure you meet the criteria from. And then also here, so this is what I was mentioning earlier for our fellowship. So if it's a $15,000 stipend with health insurance and full tuition and fees up to 9 credits, so the Barrick does cover. So you will get your $15,000 in addition to these things, but presidents and board of trustees and Robert E. Lang doesn't have that. So if you get this award, it will apply for your tuition, your health insurance, and then any remaining amount will be refunded back to you. But that is the difference. Just making sure you're reading that in your letter to know exactly that you qualify for that. And then one of our favorite scholarships that we offer here at the grad college is our graduate access childcare scholarship. So this is specifically for graduate students that have children as dependents. If you're paying for professional daycare, whether it's here at UNLV or somewhere else, all we ask for you is to provide your tax ID from the childcare provided. or childcare provider, and then just receipts or invoices of the specific amounts that you submitted. And then we'll go ahead and review it, and we award back or refund, I guess, up to $2,500. So it's an amazing opportunity for grad students that childcare we know is not cheap. So this is just our way of trying to pay it forward and help students in these circumstances. And you can apply for the scholarship more than once. We always tell students, typically it's once a semester that students apply for it, and that's usually the rule of thumb. But we always tell students to just submit, you never know. Even if you don't get your full amount back, we still encourage people to apply. And then we also have our Dr. Greg Schraw Scholarship as well, and the School of Public Policy Leadership Travel Award. And so specifically for if you're a student in the public affairs program, you can get up to $470 to travel. So that is also an opportunity. We also know that conference travel isn't cheap. So just making sure you highlight specifically for your department that there's an opportunity there as well. And so where's the application? So this is gonna look slightly different, but practically all the same with the new updated Grad Level Gateway. So just log into your Grad Level Gateway, check the scholarships and fellowship tab. And this is important to note because some students get this confused. If you have multiple applications on file, like let's say you are a non-degree seeking student, and that is the application that you're active on, that isn't gonna show you your scholarships and fellowships because that only shows when you're in an active degree seeking program. So say you went from non-degree to degree seeking, making sure that your active application is for your program specifically. That's how you'll be able to view your scholarships and fellowships that you qualify for, because I have had students where it just shows up blank, and that's most likely why. And so notes, if a scholarship or fellowship isn't showing up, you may not be eligible for it. So just making sure that you're double checking. If for whatever reason you think you qualify for something and it's not coming up, just feel free to send me an email and then I can look into it for you. But typically we set it in the system where unless you qualify for it, it will be listed on there. Okay, and then so materials. So when you are applying, this is what I said, like the general material requirements are your application and gateway, and then updated CV or resume, and then letter of intent and statement of purpose, and then a recommender. So similar to when you're applying for admissions, you just have to list someone, and then the recommender will get the generated email that you listed them as a recommender, and then for them to do the steps to submit their letter of support for you. And so that's the same thing. You don't have to have the letter with you in order to submit your application. And so awards listed are available for 2026 and 2027. You must be enrolled in a minimum of 6 grad level credits unless otherwise stated. Like for example, with our summer doctoral research fellowship, you only have to be enrolled in 1 credit over the summer. So it just depends, but typically it is going to be 6 graduate level credits. And then stating again, funding is split between fall and spring semesters unless otherwise noted. And then I like to highlight letter of recommendation because every year it's always something different with a student. So I have had students list recommenders that have no idea who they are. So I'll have the recommender emailing me saying, I've never met this person in my life, no idea who they are. Or let's say you took a class with a professor and you think that they remembered you and you never established that relationship. Or they have a recommender that they didn't know they're gonna list them as a recommender and they're like, hey, I was never made aware of this. I don't even know what this application is for. Or you have recommenders that don't submit anything at all, and that is a big thing as well. So for everyone to know, every year we get about 600 to 700, I would say, applications. Well, no, I would go a little higher, maybe 800, but around 5 to 6 is usually the ones that we can actually review because we have so many that do not qualify because of their letter of recommendation. So we tell students to keep checking on your application, making sure that your recommender submitted it. We have had instances where even a recommender says they don't want to write a letter for a student, and so they have to replace that recommender. And that's not something you can do manually on your end. We have to upload it for you on our end. So you have to notify us to update the recommender so then we can send them the generated email. So just making sure you're doing your due diligence and seeing that they're submitting information for you, because that could be the reason where we have had students fully qualify and they don't get their letter in on time, so they end up not getting anything. And then they wonder why. And so we should just tell students, how do they submit the letter? When should you contact your recommender? Now, as early as possible is what I tell people. So just making sure you're doing all this ahead of time, so you're not waiting until the last minute to get this submitted when applications are due on December 1st. And then for your statement of purpose, just kind of general rule of thumb is maximum 2 to 3 pages, double space. Proofread, then proofread again, because our committee members are reading a lot of papers, and so we want to make sure that your statement of purpose is tailored specifically to your application. We have had students submit multiple scholarships and use the same one, and it's addressed just to one scholarship, but they submitted it to 5, right? So we want to make sure that it's specifically titled for the scholarship you're applying for. And when I was stating earlier, the rubric that we have listed, this is just a screenshot to kind of show what it looks like. So you have your statement of interest, very low, somewhat high, and very high. So this is the rubric that committees actually use. So if you just wanted to get an idea of what to kind of base your statement of purpose and anything on, this is what the committee will base it on. And so any applications, like I stated earlier, that are not complete or do not follow the requirements will not be considered. No ifs, ands, or buts. We tell students that even if your recommender decided to submit after, if your application is submitted before December 1st, and your recommender doesn't get your letter in before December 1st, we give a grace period until December 15th, but that is only if your application is submitted before December 1st, right? It's not that a student decided to submit an application December 1st because the system, one, is not gonna let you do that, but that is only if you got it in, and for whatever reason, we still give a 2-week grace period in case you had a recommender gets sick or they're just unable for whatever reason. So we do give that opportunity, but please make sure this is attached. So just to kind of give everybody an application timeline, reviewing your scholarship, our scholarships and fellowship website today, tomorrow connecting with your recommender, next week begin collecting application materials by the deadline, making sure you're submitting your FAFSA. And then when our portal opens on October 1st, making sure you're applying for what you're eligible for. And then November 30th, making sure all applications are submitted. And then by December 15th, making sure your letter of recommendation is due from your faculty member. And so over the winter break is typically when we start reviewing everything. So when you're applying right now for October 1st, these awards are actually for next fall. So when we start applying things, that's when it will be for, because between December and January, our committee members are meeting to review all these scholarships and fellowships. So usually by March of next year is when they have decisions on everything. So then that's when you will be notified, and then it will be applied for your fall semester of the following year. And then just to give you an idea what the committee does, they are made up of a very diverse academic faculty, so we try to make sure we inquire people from very different departments to make it fair and just bring different ideas to the table. They do have to attend a training that we provide on how to review everything, and I'm at the meetings where they meet and discuss everything, just to help them and providing feedback. And then when they select all the people that they want to award, they send that information over to me, and then I notify you all if you have been awarded or not. And so like I said earlier, winners are typically announced March and April. You will be notified via your Grad Rebel Gateway, just very similar to your admissions or GA applications. And then awards for our scholarships and fellowships typically get dispersed 10 days before the first day of classes. It's usually a Friday, I know that, but it's typically 10 days before classes begin. And just make sure that you are enrolled in a certain amount of credits before the fall semester begins, because this is when what I was stating earlier, if you're not enrolled and you got a scholarship or fellowship, we can't disperse it, because with financial aid, they can't disperse money to a student if you're not actively enrolled in your program. So say you're not enrolled and you got this, you'll be getting an email from yours truly saying, please enroll so I can give you your scholarship. Thank you. And so if you don't receive your award or decision letter, please contact our General Grad Financial Services email. We included it there, and then I can also look into it on there as well. If not, you can email me directly, either or is fine. And then other funding ideas that we like to include is that if other funding or other organizations or companies outside of the university are available to support you at the grad level. So just making sure you're looking into banks like Wells Fargo or just other areas that you might be involved in. You never know, that can be applied to your degree seeking program. And if you don't know where to start, you can contact us here at the grad college. You can contact financial aid. I know they also have a lot of resources, or even your faculty mentor to see if they have any interdepartmental scholarships or fellowships that they're awarding. And then don't be afraid to apply for funding. You never know, even smaller amounts of scholarships or fellowships of like $100 can really make a difference in the long run. So just making sure, I know I sound like a broken record at this point, of doing your research and making sure you're doing it ahead of time, because one of the biggest resources that you have as a grad student is being able to access all these pots of money that are not available to people on the outside, right? So I always encourage you to look at all your opportunities to help you in your funding journey. So I included some resources here as well. If you like articles like me and you want to read them, here they are. And then a couple more. And then that's it. So we can open it up to any questions. I included a QR code if you wanted to rate the presentation, maybe something that you feel like is missing or I could have addressed a little more clearly. I always appreciate the feedback. So I included that for you as well. But that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much.